Lincoln Elementary received a bomb threat. 800 children, 50 teachers. Panic was setting in. The principal didn't know what to do. Teachers were scared. But Assistant Principal Sarah Mitchell stayed calm. She initiated a systematic evacuation plan, activated security protocols, controlled the entire situation until police arrived. When the police chief arrived, he was surprised. This woman was managing the crisis with military precision. "Have you dealt with situations like this before?" he asked. Sarah rolled up her sleeve. There was a faded tattoo, Army Military Police. Welcome to Unsung Heroes Stories. Before we begin this powerful story about leadership, protection, and hidden strength, tell us in the comments, from which city are you watching this video today? And if you believe that heroes sometimes wear business suits instead of uniforms, hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. Lincoln Elementary School sat on Maple Street in suburban Columbus, Ohio, a red brick building that had educated children for over 60 years. With 800 students from kindergarten through 5th grade, it was one of the larger elementary schools in the district, serving a diverse community of working families, young professionals, and longtime residents. The school had the typical energy of any elementary school: hallways lined with colorful artwork, the constant sound of children's voices, teachers moving between classrooms with coffee cups and lesson plans. During morning drop-off and afternoon pickup, the circular drive would fill with cars and school buses, parents waving goodbye to small faces pressed against windows. Sarah Mitchell had been the assistant principal at Lincoln for 3 years. At 38, she was younger than most administrators, but her colleagues respected her efficiency and calm demeanor. She handled the daily operations that kept the school running: scheduling, discipline issues, parent conferences, and the 1,000 small crises that arose in any building full of children. Sarah was known for her organization and attention to detail. Her office was methodically arranged, her calendar color-coded, her emergency procedures clearly documented. Teachers often commented that she seemed to anticipate problems before they happened and always had solutions ready. What they didn't know was that Sarah Mitchell had developed these skills during 8 years as a military police officer in the United States Army, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan where anticipating problems was the difference between life and death. Tuesday, March 15th, started like any other day at Lincoln Elementary. Students were dropped off between 7:30 and 8 a.m., backpacks bouncing, lunchboxes in hand. Excitement and sleepiness mixed on their faces as they prepared for another day of learning. Sarah arrived at 6:45 a.m., as she always did. She liked to be in the building before the chaos began, reviewing the day's schedule, checking in with custodial staff, and walking the halls to make sure everything was ready for students and teachers. Principal Robert Davies was a good man in his late 50s who'd been at Lincoln for 12 years. He was beloved by parents and students, but he'd never been tested by serious crisis. His background was purely educational: teacher, then department head, then administrator. He handled the academic and political aspects of running a school well, but when it came to security and emergency procedures, he relied heavily on Sarah's expertise. The morning proceeded normally. Students settled into their classrooms, teachers began their lessons, and the familiar rhythm of elementary education took hold. 1st grade was working on reading comprehension. 3rd grade had math worksheets. 5th grade was preparing for their science fair projects. Sarah was in her office reviewing lunch count reports when her secretary, Mrs. Patterson, knocked on the door with an expression Sarah had learned to read. Something was wrong. "Sarah, we just got a phone call," Mrs. Patterson said, her voice tight with concern. "Someone called the main office and said there was a bomb in the building." Sarah's demeanor shifted immediately. Her casual morning posture straightened, her eyes sharpened, and she reached for the emergency procedures binder that was never more than arm's length away. "What exactly did they say?" she asked, already mentally running through protocols. A man's voice, very calm. He said, "There's a bomb in Lincoln Elementary. You have 20 minutes. Then he hung up. Sarah was already moving toward the door. "Get Mr. Davies immediately. Call 911 and tell them we have a bomb threat and are initiating evacuation procedures. Do not use the PA system yet. I need to brief Mr. Davies first." Mrs. Patterson nodded and reached for the phone while Sarah strode down the hallway toward the principal's office. Principal Davies was reviewing teacher evaluations when Sarah knocked and entered without waiting for permission. A breach of normal protocol that immediately told him something serious was happening. "Bob, we have a bomb threat," Sarah said directly. "Anonymous call. Claimed 20 minutes until detonation. We need to evacuate now." Davies went pale. "A bomb threat? Are you serious? How do we? Sarah could see the panic starting to set in. This was exactly the kind of situation she'd trained for, but Davies had never faced anything like it. "Bob, I need you to stay calm. We have procedures for this, and we're going to execute them exactly as planned. Can you do that?" Davies nodded, though his hands were shaking slightly. "Here's what's going to happen," Sarah continued, her voice carrying the authority she'd learned to project under pressure. "You're going to make an announcement for a fire drill. Don't mention the bomb threat. We don't want to cause panic. I'm going to coordinate with the teachers and ensure all students are evacuated to the secondary rally point, not the primary one." "Secondary rally point?" "The football field at the high school, 6 blocks away. Far enough from the building to be safe if there actually is a device." Sarah was already pulling out her radio and emergency contact list. "I need you to call the district office and inform them of the situation. Then call the parent notification system and tell them we're conducting an extended emergency drill." Davies looked overwhelmed. "Sarah, shouldn't we call the police first? Mrs. Patterson is already calling 911, but we can't wait for them to arrive before we start moving children. Every minute counts." Sarah's military training was taking over completely now. She was thinking 3 steps ahead, considering multiple scenarios, prioritizing the safety of 800 children and 50 staff members. "Bob, I need you to trust me on this. Can you do that?" Davies looked into her eyes and saw something that reassured him. Competence, experience, absolute certainty about what needed to be done. "Yes. Tell me what you need." Sarah's first stop was the main office, where she addressed the secretarial staff with crisp, clear instructions. "Ladies, we're evacuating the building due to a bomb threat. I need absolute calm and professionalism. Mrs. Patterson, continue coordinating with 911. Mrs. Rodriguez, start the parent notification calls. Tell them we're conducting an emergency drill and students will be dismissed from the high school when it's complete. Mrs. Kim, I need you to grab the emergency supplies kit and the student roster books." Then she keyed her radio and spoke to the custodial staff. "All maintenance personnel. This is Mrs. Mitchell. Code Red Evacuation. Bomb threat. I need you to unlock all emergency exits and position yourselves at exit points to assist with student flow. Do not re-enter the building for any reason once evacuation begins." Sarah moved quickly through the hallways, stopping at each classroom to personally brief the teachers. Her approach was consistent, calm, authoritative, specific. "Mrs. Johnson, we're conducting an immediate evacuation due to a security threat. Line up your students and proceed to exit C, not the main entrance. Walk normally, keep them calm, and take them to the high school football field. Account for all students and radio me when you're clear of the building." The evacuation began with remarkable order. Sarah had spent considerable time training the staff on emergency procedures, and her investment in preparation was paying off. Teachers lined up their students without panic, moved toward assigned exits, and maintained the kind of calm that prevented chaos. But Sarah wasn't just coordinating. She was problem-solving in real time. The kindergarten and first-grade students were moving slower than anticipated. Some children were asking for bathroom breaks. A few were crying because they didn't understand what was happening. Sarah made quick decisions. Older students would buddy up with younger ones. Teachers' aides would carry children who were too slow, and she personally took over the most challenging class, Mrs. Anderson's kindergarteners, who were known for being particularly energetic. "Good morning, friends," Sarah said as she entered the kindergarten classroom. "We're going to take a special walk outside today. I need everyone to hold hands with your line partner and follow me. We're going to see how quietly we can walk. It's like a game." The 5-year-olds responded to her calm authority, forming their line and following her toward the exit. As students and staff moved out of the building, Sarah positioned herself at the main coordination point where she could see all exit routes and communicate with teachers via radio. This was where her military training became most apparent. She was running a tactical operation. "Mrs. Rodriguez, how many students do you have?" She radioed to a second-grade teacher. 24, all accounted for." "Copy. Proceed to the football field and maintain accountability." Police cars began arriving as the evacuation continued. The first responder was Sergeant Martinez, a veteran officer who'd worked with Sarah on previous safety drills. "What's the situation, Mrs. Mitchell?" he asked, approaching her command position. "Anonymous bomb threat, approximately 15 minutes ago. We've evacuated 680 students so far, estimating 5 more minutes for complete building clearance. All staff and students are being moved to Lincoln High School football field for accountability and parent pickup." Sergeant Martinez was impressed by the precision of her report. "Any idea about the credibility of the threat?" "Unknown. Could be a hoax, but we're treating it as real until proven otherwise. I've got visual confirmation on all exit routes, and we're maintaining radio contact with all teachers." More police units arrived, followed by the bomb squad and fire department. Sarah briefed each team leader with the same professional efficiency, providing building layouts, student counts, and evacuation status. Lieutenant Brooks from the bomb squad pulled her aside. "Ma'am, you're running this evacuation better than most professional security teams. What's your background?" Sarah was focused on her radio, confirming the final classroom clearances. "Military police. 8 years Army. That explains it. We'll take over the investigation from here, but keep doing what you're doing with the kids and parents." 2 hours later, the bomb squad completed their sweep. No explosive device was found. The threat had been a hoax, probably from a teenager who thought it would be amusing to disrupt school. But Sarah's response had been anything but amusing. In less than 12 minutes, she had evacuated 800 children and 50 staff members from a large building, moved them to a secure location 6 blocks away, maintained complete accountability, and coordinated with multiple emergency response agencies. Parents began arriving at the high school to pick up their children. Most were confused, but not panicked. The parent notification system had worked exactly as designed, providing information without causing alarm. Principal Davies found Sarah in the high school gymnasium, where she was overseeing the student release process. Teachers were checking IDs and matching students with authorized pickup persons. "Sarah," Davies said, "I don't know how to thank you. You were incredible. How did you know exactly what to do?" Sarah was tired now, the adrenaline beginning to fade. "Training and experience, Bob. This isn't the first time I've had to move large groups of people out of danger. In Afghanistan, among other places." Sarah didn't elaborate. She never talked much about her military service, preferring to let her actions speak for themselves. Davies pressed gently. The way you handled this, it was like watching a professional emergency coordinator. The police were amazed. Sarah shrugged. It's just preparation meeting opportunity. We drill for these scenarios so that if they ever happen for real, everyone knows their role. But you were making decisions I never could have made. The evacuation routes, the coordination with emergency services, the way you kept everyone calm. Bob, I spent 2 years in charge of security for a forward operating base in Afghanistan. We had threats regularly, some real, some not. You learn to stay calm and think systematically. Davies was quiet for a moment, processing this information. He'd known Sarah was former military, but he'd never understood the depth of her experience. Why didn't you ever tell me about your background? You never asked, and it's not something I bring up casually. The next morning, Lincoln Elementary was buzzing with activity as students returned to normal classes. Parents dropped off their children with extra hugs and words of gratitude to teachers and staff. The local news had covered the story. Elementary school evacuated due to bomb threat, all students safe. But they'd focused on the smooth evacuation and lack of actual danger, rather than the specifics of how the crisis had been managed. Sarah was in her office, catching up on the paperwork that had been abandoned during yesterday's emergency, when there was a knock on her door. Superintendent Dr. Williams entered, followed by Principal Davies and a man Sarah didn't recognize. "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Chief Thompson from the Columbus Police Department." Chief Thompson stepped forward and shook Sarah's hand. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've reviewed the reports from yesterday's incident. Your handling of the evacuation was exemplary. Lieutenant Brooks and Sergeant Martinez both said they've rarely seen civilians manage emergency response with that level of professionalism. Thank you, sir, but I was just doing my job." "Actually, you were doing much more than your job. I understand you have military police background?" "Yes, sir. 8 years Army, 2 deployments to Afghanistan." Chief Thompson nodded. "That explains the tactical approach. Mrs. Mitchell, we're always looking for people with your skills and temperament. Have you ever considered law enforcement?" Sarah smiled. "Thank you for the offer, but I'm quite happy where I am." Superintendent Williams spoke up. "Sarah, the district office has been discussing ways to improve our emergency preparedness across all schools. We'd like you to develop training protocols based on what you did yesterday." "I'd be honored to help." "There's something else," Dr. Williams continued. "The school board is creating a new position, Director of Emergency Preparedness for the district. It would involve training administrators and staff, coordinating with local emergency services, and overseeing safety protocols. We'd like to offer it to you." Sarah was surprised. "That's very generous, but I love working with the students here at Lincoln." Principal Davies interjected. "Sarah, you could save lives across the entire district. What you did yesterday, not everyone could do that." "Let me think about it," Sarah said. That evening, Sarah sat in her apartment, reviewing the events of the past 2 days. The district's offer was tempting: more responsibility, better pay, the opportunity to make a broader impact on school safety. But she also thought about the kindergarteners who had trusted her during the evacuation, the way the older students had helped the younger ones, the relief in parents' eyes when they were reunited with their children. Her phone rang. It was her former Army commander, Colonel Patricia Hayes, now retired and working in private security. "Sarah, I saw the news story about the school evacuation. Sounds like you handled it perfectly." "Thank you, ma'am. Just put my training to use." "That's what I'm calling about. I have a proposition for you. My company is expanding into school security consulting. We could use someone with your background and recent experience. The pay would be excellent, and you'd be working with schools nationwide. Another opportunity." Sarah appreciated the recognition, but something about it didn't feel right. "Colonel, I'm grateful for the offer, but I don't think I'm interested in leaving education. May I ask why? Sarah thought about how to explain it. In the Army, we protected people we never really knew. Civilians in villages, fellow soldiers in other units. It was important work, but abstract. Here, I know every child's name. I know which third grader is struggling with reading, which fifth grader is dealing with her parents' divorce. When I protected them yesterday, it wasn't just tactical, it was personal. Colonel Hayes was quiet for a moment. You've found your mission, haven't you? Yes, ma'am. I think I have. Sarah accepted the district position as Director of Emergency Preparedness, but with conditions. She would maintain her office at Lincoln Elementary and continue working directly with students. The emergency preparedness work would be an addition to, not a replacement for, her educational role. Over the following months, Sarah developed comprehensive training programs for school administrators across the district. She taught them the same systematic approach to crisis management that had served her in the military: advanced planning, clear communication, decisive action under pressure. But more importantly, she helped them understand that emergency preparedness wasn't just about procedures and protocols. It was about creating a culture where everyone felt responsible for everyone else's safety. She worked with police and fire departments to conduct realistic drills, trained teachers in basic emergency response, and helped design better evacuation routes and communication systems. The local media began calling her the Guardian Principal, a title that made her uncomfortable, but which accurately reflected how parents and colleagues saw her. 6 months after the bomb threat, Sarah was conducting a training session for new administrators when a young assistant principal raised her hand. Mrs. Mitchell, how do you stay so calm during emergencies? Some of us freeze up when things go wrong. Sarah considered the question carefully. The military taught me that panic is a luxury you can't afford when other people are depending on you. But the real answer is preparation. When you've thought through scenarios in advance, when you've practiced procedures until they're automatic, when you trust your training, you don't have to be brave. You just have to be ready. But what about fear? Fear is useful. It keeps you alert and focused. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to function effectively despite it. After the training session, Sarah walked back to Lincoln Elementary. Students were being dismissed, parents were arriving for pickup, and the normal chaos of afternoon departure was underway. A kindergartner named Emma ran up to her in the hallway. "Mrs. Mitchell, Mrs. Mitchell, look at my art project." Sarah bent down to examine Emma's drawing, a colorful picture of stick figures holding hands in front of a school building. "That's beautiful, Emma. Tell me about it." "It's our whole class. And see, you're there too, keeping us safe." In the corner of the drawing, Emma had drawn a figure in a business suit standing protectively in front of the other stick figures. Sarah smiled. "Thank you, Emma. That's the best art I've ever seen." 3 years later, Sarah Mitchell's emergency preparedness protocols had been adopted by school districts across Ohio and several other states. She'd received commendations from law enforcement agencies, recognition from educational organizations, and offers from private companies seeking her expertise. But she remained at Lincoln Elementary, where she belonged. The bomb threat had been a hoax, but it had revealed something important: that heroes don't always wear uniforms or carry weapons. Sometimes they wear business suits and carry emergency procedure manuals. Sometimes they protect children instead of soldiers. Sometimes they serve their communities in quiet ways that only become visible during moments of crisis. Sarah's military service had prepared her for many things, but her true calling turned out to be protecting the most vulnerable members of society, children who trusted adults to keep them safe. Every morning, as she walked the halls of Lincoln Elementary, checking on classrooms and greeting students, Sarah carried with her the knowledge that her skills and experience were exactly where they needed to be. She'd traded one uniform for another, one mission for another. But the core purpose remained the same: stand ready, stay prepared, and never let down the people who depend on you. Sometimes the most important battles are fought not on foreign soil, but in the hallways of elementary schools. Sometimes the greatest victories are measured not in enemies defeated, but in children safely returned to their parents' arms. Sarah Mitchell understood this better than most, and every day she reported for duty. So tell us, have you ever encountered someone like Sarah Mitchell? Someone whose quiet competence and hidden background became apparent only during a moment of crisis, someone who chose to serve their community in ways that most people never see or appreciate. Share their story in the comments. Tell us their name. Honor the protectors who walk among us, keeping our children and communities safe. Because at Unsung Hero Stories, we believe that heroes come in many forms. Sometimes they're soldiers in combat zones. Sometimes they're administrators in elementary schools. What matters isn't the uniform, it's the commitment to protecting others. Subscribe if this story moved you. We share these quiet guardian stories every week. And remember, next time you see a school administrator or someone in educational leadership, look twice. You might be standing next to someone who's prepared to put themselves between danger and the children in their care.